FBAR penalties manifested through the voluntary disclosure programs. FATCA is the straw that has broken the camel's back. FATCA has classified all Americans overseas as potential criminals as tax cheats. The new FATCA Form 8938 to report foreign financial assets is viewed as burdensome, duplicative with the FBAR report, a major intrusion of privacy, and an open door to total identity theft. To just add insult to injury, FATCA has turned Americans into pariahs in the international world of finance. FFIs now pursue relationships with Americans to involve costly administrative burden as well as legal and financial risk. They are refusing American clients and are closing their accounts. Mortgages are being canceled. For middle-class Americans residing abroad, this is devastating. Worse yet, the shutout also involves foreign pension funds and insurance companies, thereby cutting off access to jobs overseas and to financial security. FATCA is also forcing Americans to cancel their American spouses' rights on formerly joint-owned bank accounts. This leads to enormous tensions in families and a precarious financial situation for the American spouse. FATCA also shuts out American entrepreneurs from joint ventures and partnerships with foreigners, since it requires those ventures to report to the IRS on U.S. investors with 10% or more ownership. The Treasury Department discounts testimonies of Americans abroad on bank accounts closures as anecdotal. But for U.S. citizens, it's a question of survival. In 5 recent town hall meetings held under the auspices of American Ambassador Don Beyer, the bank access question was raised repeatedly, and over half of those present indicated that they had experienced problems opening and maintaining a bank account. You will consequently not be surprised to hear that FATCA not only opposes, ACA not only opposes FATCA, but also calls for the replacement of citizenship-based taxation by a residence-based system, comparable to that applied throughout the rest of the world. Americans overseas should not be subject to U.S. taxes on the same basis as those living in the United States. They do not receive comparable services, and they pay taxes where they live. Citizenship-based taxation leads to double taxation due to differences between tax regimes, yet at the same time provides little tax revenue, since the U.S. must recognize the first right of taxation by the country of residence and must allow foreign tax credits against U.S. tax liability. It is an inefficient, complex reporting system carrying outrageous, and I mean outrageous, penalties for minor errors. And now FATCA has demonstrated the full absurdity of citizenship-based taxation, leading to the destruction of the community of Americans abroad. The ACA tax reform proposal can be found on the ACA website. Now I would like to explain briefly why FATCA is bad law above and beyond the impact on Americans residing abroad. The rest of the world is infuriated by the imperial overreach, by the U.S. unilaterally imposing its laws outside its borders, turning FFIs into agents of the IRS and requiring them to break national privacy protection laws. The 30% withholding tax carries a big threatening stick. Treasury's proposed regulations, issued February, are nearly 400 pages, an administrative nightmare. Kafka has been quite busy at the IRS. At the same time, Treasury announced that the U.S. and 5 European nations were developing a partnership agreement to allow financial institutions in those nations to report U.S.-owned assets directly to their governments rather than to the IRS, apparently circumventing the legal privacy issue for FFIs. These agreements include 2 other key elements, new elements. One is reciprocity. The U.S. will have to furnish information on foreign-owned U.S. bank deposits. And the other eliminates the pass-through withholding requirement for transfers within the partnership countries. And as it was just been mentioned, and I'm sorry it's a little bit of a repeat, but it's my perspective on those same issues. Just last week, the U.S. announced the second model agreement with Switzerland and Japan, labeled the Cooperation Agreement. The Swiss agreement eliminates the Swiss legal restriction for FFIs to report individually to the IRS if the client agrees to such reporting. It also eliminates the FATCA reporting requirement for Social Security and pension funds and expands the range of deemed compliant FFIs. The agreement also cancels the pass-through reporting requirement with countries that sign either a FATCA partnership, or cooperation agreement. So now the IRS has 2 government-to-government models which provide alternative paths to the original FATCA legislation. The U.S. has come to realize that it must cooperate with other governments to resolve its legal overreach. Eliminating the pass-through withholding requirement, offering reciprocity, and facilitating compliance entices